Hi guys, it's me again, Manelisi, and today I'm going to be doing a life sciences session. So we are going to be focusing on reproduction in human. We are just going to be looking at the parts and their functions, and then the rest will do it if anybody is interested in the topic. Okay, so as we know that reproduction happens when both the male and female are involved. So for reproduction to take place, we need female gametes and female reproduction system. And then in males, we also need the same thing as in males. So for reproduction to take place, we need these aspects. So as we know that there are parts of the male reproduction system and parts of the female reproduction system. So that's what we are going to be looking at. So we are going to start first with the male reproduction system. So with the male reproduction system, we have our urethra, an important part of that system. So the urethra transports semen and urine out of the male reproduction system. So the key aspect for reproduction in this part is semen. Remember, semen is a combination of sperm cells and fluids from the glands, from the male glands, from the male reproduction system's glands. So we get sperm cells and fluids. The next part, we are going to be looking at the epididymis. So the epididymis is a part where sperm cells are stored. Sperm cells are stored temporarily, right? It is important to remember that they are only stored in the epididymis temporarily. So the epididymis is the part before the vas deferens. The vas deferens. So the vas deferens is the one that transports sperm cells from the epididymis to the urethra. So that's the function of a vas deferens. So what you need to know for a test or exam concerning the vas deferens is that the vasectomy is done on the vas deferens. So a vasectomy is done so that the male does not produce children, does not produce offsprings. So the vas deferens, as it transports sperm cells from the urethra, from the epididymis to the urethra. That means that transportation of sperm cells from the epididymis to the urethra will be cut. So no sperm cells will be going to the urethra. So this will lead to semen containing only fluids and no sperm cells. So the next part we are going to be looking at is the three parts, which are our glands. So we have the prostate, an important one. The prostate. So we also get prostate cancer from that gland. So that first one It's the prostate gland. It's the one that causes prostate cancer. Prostate cancer happens on the prostate gland. So the prostate gland secretes nutrient-filled fluids. So it secretes nutrient-filled fluids. So these fluids help the sperm cells to move. So it helps the sperm cells with locomotion. The fluids are nutrient-filled, which means they provide energy for the sperm cells to move from the male reproduction system to the female reproduction system. So the next part we are going to be dealing with is the seminal vesicle. The seminal vesicle secretes an alkaline fluid that neutralizes the acidic levels in the vagina. So sperm cells are sensitive to acidic conditions, so they die in acidic conditions. So that's the whole purpose of the seminal vesicle, to secrete alkaline fluid which will protect the sperm cells from the acidic conditions in the vagina. Then the next gland is our cowpath. Cowpath gland, right? So just like the name says, cows. We always know that cows might look a little bit disgusting or something. So the cowpath gland secretes mucus like fluids. So as we know that mucus like fluids obviously will allow for the sperm cells to propel through it easier, since mucus is slimy. It's slimy and slippery. So it allows for the sperm cells movement. So these two glands, the cowpath gland and the prostate gland, all allow the sperm cells to move freely. They allow for locomotion. But the seminal vesicles only produces an alkaline fluid that will neutralize acidic levels in the vagina. So these are the most important parts of the male reproduction system. Then we have the testes. Okay. With the testes, we have to know that in the testes, we have testosterone, right? Testosterone, which is a male hormone. So this hormone actually allows for the formation of secondary sexual characteristics in males. So this can also be called puberty. So they stimulate puberty. They stimulate the development of secondary sexual characteristics in males. So that's the function of the testes. It secretes the testosterone hormone, which stimulates the formation or development of secondary sexual characteristics in males. So in the testes, we also find the production of sperm cells. Remember, they only mature in the epididymis, but they are actually produced in the testes. So the other part, which I won't be able to fit into this page, is the scrotum. So the scrotum is that sac outside the male's body. It's the sac outside the male's body which holds the testes outside of the body at a temperature 2 degrees Celsius lower than your body temperature. So that's the function of the scrotum. It holds the testes outside the body at a temperature 2 degrees Celsius lower than your body. So that's the function of the scrotum. So on a hot day, the scrotum it relaxes, which means it moves away from the body, since the body will be as warm. So the body will be a warm, so the scrotum will relax so that the testes are further away from the body. The maintenance of the temperature 2 degrees lower than your body temperature is to allow for the production of sperm cells. Sperm cells can only produce in the favorable temperature. So if the temperature is higher than the favorable temperature, sperm cell production will be hindered. And if the temperature is lower than the preferred temperature, sperm cell production will be lower. It might also lead to infertility. So on a cold day, the scrotum contracts. The scrotum contracts. Okay. So now I think that's all the important aspects of a male reproduction system. If I've forgotten something, please like, subscribe, and then we'll fix it when you send me a text and ask for more. So this is just a browsing through. I'm not actually teaching, I'm just browsing through the topic. So on the female's reproduction system, we have your uterus. Your uterus. So your uterus, it's the part of a female where the baby grows, where the baby grows from the embryo, where the embryo develops into a fetus. So this is where the embryo develops into a fetus. So remember, the embryo attaches itself to the wall of the uterus. So now we have to know what is the wall of the uterus. So that wall is called the endometrium. Endometrium. So that's the wall of the uterus. That's where the attachment of the embryo happens. So on the endometrium wall, implantation takes place. Implantation takes place. So implantation is when the embryo attaches itself to the wall of the uterus, or you can say to the endometrium. Then the next part, we have your ovaries. So in the ovaries, that's where your ovum is produced, right? Your ovum is produced, and that's where the hormones, the two hormones, female hormones, progesterone is produced. So I'll explain first what progesterone does. So progesterone, the first part, is secreted by your corpus luteum, right? Corpus luteum in the ovaries. So progesterone just further thickens your endometrium wall so that it's ready for implantation. But first, before that, you have to have your first hormone. You have to have your first hormone, which is secreted by your Graafian. No, not your Graafian follicles, but your follicles. When your follicles develop, they form a Graafian follicle. Inside that Graafian follicle, you find the ovum. The ovum starts developing inside the Graafian follicle, whereby now the hormone secreted by the Graafian follicle is your estrogen. So that's the first hormone before progesterone. This all will count for you or will be important when you are doing the menstrual cycle. The menstrual cycle. So be wary of these ones. So progesterone comes after estrogen, just as the Graafian follicle is formed before the corpus luteum. So what you need to know is that progesterone is secreted by the corpus luteum and the estrogen is secreted by the follicles, Graafian follicles. So your Graafian follicles also contain an ovum. That ovum will be released during ovulation. So the process of the release of an ovum is called ovulation. You have to know the definition of ovulation, what ovulation is. So ovulation is when a Graafian follicle ruptures and releases an ovum. So that's your ovulation stage. So the next part we are going to be focusing on is your fallopian tubes. Fallopian tubes. So your fallopian tubes are just the site of fertilization. So that's where the sperm cells meet the ovum and fertilization takes place. Now the new word fertilization, you have to know the definition. So this is the fusing of your sperm cell with the ovum to form a haploid zygote. To form a diploid zygote, So remember, it's 23 chromosomes on the sperm cell and 23 chromosomes on the ovum. So there's all add up to 46 chromosomes on the zygote. So that's the normal chromosome number of a human being. So the next part we are going to be dealing with is your vulva. So usually I'd explain the vulva as the lips. So the vulva is outside, which protects foreign particles from entering the vagina. So it actually protects the vagina. So this is the lining outside of your reproduction system, right? It's outside your reproduction system. And then your vagina. That's the next part. So now your vagina is a canal. So it's canal-like. So it's a pathway or passage for the baby or during your birth. So this is a passageway for the baby to pass through during childbirth. So that's the function of a vagina. It's a passage or pathway for the baby during childbirth. So now I can fit in the last one, which is your cervix. So your cervix is a muscle. So this muscle allows for the baby to pass through. Allows for the baby to pass through. So that's the function of this muscle. So the muscle is able to contract enough to allow for the baby to pass through. So this helps with the babies passing through. So this is why, firstly, the baby has to pass through with his or her head. So this is so that the cervix opens up opens up for the rest of the body, since the body is bigger than the head. So this is the function for your cervix. It contracts or relaxes to allow for the baby to pass through. So these are your key points when dealing with the human reproduction systems. So all you have to know and pinpoint is these important facts about your menstrual cycle. So always focus on these two hormones, your progesterone and estrogen, and also know the function of your Graafian follicle and corpus luteum, and the function of your endometrium. It's also important when dealing with the movement of the zygote of the embryo to the uterus, right? And the formation of your fetus. So it's important for those parts. If you know that when the embryo reaches the uterus, it attaches itself to the uterus wall during implantation. So now you know how the fetus forms. The fetus forms on the endometrium wall, where the placenta also forms. So the placenta forms on the endometrium wall. And we also have to look at the formation of your umbilical cord. And you should know the artery and its function, and the vein and its function. So those are the important parts on the umbilical cord. Just know the function of your umbilical artery and the function of your umbilical vein. Those are important. You have to know whether one transports or releases waste and nitrogenous waste. So those are the two things you have to know. Whether the other one brings oxygen or takes out carbon dioxide. So you have to know which one does that, which one brings the nutrients, which one releases or takes out waste. So those are your key points. It's waste, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and nutrients. And just to take you back a little bit more, so remember, this is a human. So that means this female reproduces using the vivipary reproduction. So that means there is no egg involved. The baby receives nutrients and oxygen directly from the mother. So using the umbilical cord. So I'm just going to go back a little. I just want to explain this one. Gametes. What are our gametes? So when we talk about gametes, we talk about your sperm cell and ovum. Remember, refrain from using egg cell. Refrain from using egg cell, but use your ovum. Wherever they ask you to, name it using its biological term. Use ovum. Egg cell cancelled. So those are the two parts you have to know. Your gametes are your sperm cell and ovum. And the formation of your gametes is called gametogenesis. So this is from your previous topic. It's called gametogenesis. So that's the sperm cell and ovum formation. In females, we call this process oogenesis. Then in males, we call it spermatogenesis. So depending on what is formed during that process, spermatogenesis in males. You have to know the events that take place in spermatogenesis and oogenesis in females. You have to know the events that take place in oogenesis. That's all for today. So that was life sciences, the male and female reproduction system. So if you want more, you can contact me at 076 587 5041. And then I'll add you to a group where I'll be sending these videos and I'll be taking questions and answering questions. Thank you very much.